Hello, it's Dr. Jo Nadin back again. This time I'm going to talk to you about interiority. If you're one of my module students, you will probably have heard me bang on about it in class. If you're one of my manuscript students, you will tire of hearing about it. So what do I mean by the word interiority, and why is it so important? Well, what I mean is interiority is the counterpart to action. It's that inner voice of your protagonist that tells us what they're thinking and feeling, or in some clever cases, what they want us to think they're thinking and feeling. Basically, it is what gives meaning to the action. Without interiority, action's just a series of this happened, and then that happened. And as I've said before, events are not what interest readers or humans in general. What we are interested in is how those events affect people. So a building exploding is neither here nor there to us, but a building exploding with people inside it is suddenly interesting or hopefully worrying. A building exploding with someone we know inside it, personally or because they're famous, is doubly so. So this is why actually film sequels often have higher ratings or certificates than their predecessors, because viewers are already invested in those characters, so censors know they will be more traumatised by peril. I believe that happened with one of the Toy Story sequels. The thing is, whether or not we like to admit it, we are nosy by nature, and we need to know where to place people to predict what they might do next. To do that, we need to see inside their heads. Some of that, as in books as in life, is done with little giveaways, unconscious things a character might say or do, like nudging a Lego set underneath the bed because they're embarrassed when a new friend comes round, or spraying on squirt after squirt of perfume before a date because they're nervous. The advantage in books compared to real life is that your protagonist can actually tell us literally what's going on inside there, in first person because they're talking directly to us as readers, in third because your narrator can swoop in and get inside their heads and tell us instead. I want to look at a short example now. This is a section from Catherine Bruton's I Predict a Riot. To give you some context, Maggie, the protagonist, is 16, she's white, she's daughter of a London MP, she's an aspiring filmmaker, lives in a big house. Tokes is the same age, he's black, he's in a gang, he lives in a council flat. First, I'm going to read it to you. This is me, I've typed it up basically, and I've taken all the interiority, all the emotion out of it. There was a huge crash from just beyond the alley. Someone had started a fire in the furniture shop. A sofa was burning. Fingers of orange flame started to lick out of the window. Why, I said. Why can't he just give it all up? Because you don't just drop out of a gang and live to tell the tale. And even if he could, he's got a criminal record, no education, no skills. How's he going to live? Who's going to give him a job? A loud police siren punctuated the air, accompanied by screams and laughter. Tokes looked down at me. What about your mum and dad? He asked then. You think they'll get back together? I shook my head. Sometimes it feels like he left me when he left her, like he divorced us both. He sends you donuts every week, he said. I'm sick of donuts. I can picture the scene. There's some great description in there of surrounding action, but do I feel anything? No, not yet anyway. So I'm going to try it again on you. This time I'm reading the actual novel, and this is it with interiority in. There was a huge crash from just beyond the alley, and I saw somebody started a fire inside the furniture shop. A sofa was burning. Fingers of orange flame started to lick out of the window. I thought of the Chowdhury's shop, the TVs on display, the special offer signs in Mr. Chowdhury's curling handwriting. Why, I said quickly, pushing the thought out of my brain. Why can't he just give it all up? Because you don't just drop out of a gang and live to tell the tale. Tokes kept staring ahead, and I got the feeling he needed to keep talking too, that he was as scared as I was. And even if he could, he's got a criminal record, no education, no skills. How's he going to live? Who's going to give him a job? A loud police siren punctuated the air, accompanied by screams and laughter. Tokes looked down at me, his eyes reflecting the lick of the flames in the sky. What about your mum and dad? He asked then. You think they'll get back together? I shook my head. Sometimes it feels like he left me when he left her, like he divorced us both. I don't think I'd really admitted that to myself before, that my brilliant dad had let me down. I felt myself wobbling on the wheelie bin and Tokes put his arm round me to hold me steady. I could feel his hand on my shoulder and the warmth of his skin against mine. He sends you donuts every week, he said. I'm sick of donuts. I looked down at my feet. The Tipex faces were covered in white dust. Only the eyes were visible, but they were blank, unreadable. I'd rather talk to him, see him. The events aren't just events anymore. They affect her. The burning sofa makes her think of her neighbours, the Chowdhuries. The divorce isn't just a divorce. Her brilliant dad has let her down. It causes her to wobble, literally and metaphorically. We know she thinks Tokes is scared too, so we get a double insight here. So why does it matter? Well, you should have heard from that example. It matters because you want your readers to care about your protagonist, to keep turning the pages to find out what happens next to them. If you've listened to a previous video, I talk about plot being driven by moments of change and the holy grail for TV directors being the close-up of a face as it registers change. Well, moments of interiority are where you're going to give us that close-up in words. Because if you don't make me care, I won't be bothered about reading on. Instead of, oh no, or what next, I'll say, so what? And that's the last thing you want your readers to think about your work. The plus side is that most of us actually are guilty of not writing in enough interiority into our first drafts. The next plus side is that adding in interiority is relatively easy, even to an already polished scene of action. Catherine Bruton actually admits this is how she wrote I Predict a Riot. She blocks out action and gets that down in her first draft, and then she adds in the feeling, the interiority, later in her second draft. I will also admit that my first drafts, or my drafts, because I only write one, go to my editors and then they'll come back saying more feeling here in quite a few places, because I focus very clearly on the plot, on what's happening and where on my stage, and the interiority can easily be added in later. So how do we know what they're feeling and what's going on inside their heads? There are a number of ways you can do this. Number one, by proper studying of human emotions, by studying psychology. More easily, by plundering your own emotions. I've said before that I live my characters. I method act in a way, at least while I'm physically writing the novel. That's actually why I intersperse writing serious, sometimes quite depressing YA and adult novels with writing funny middle grade stories. Because it's no surprise, I find it emotionally draining living out traumatised characters for week upon week, month upon month. Another way, obviously, is to steal. You should know enough from other books and from your friends as well to be able to recognise and recreate those kind of emotions. A little note here, though, when you are doing that on the page, about it's a kind of show don't tell thing, I think. Saying it was terrible or I felt scared are not what we are going for. Why? Because it was terrible gives the brain nothing to work with. Brains are model builders, basically. They want to empathise. They want to feel what a character feels, but to do that, they need vivid and specific detail, and only that way do we truly arouse our emotions. In films, that's often done actually with music, so you get them both at the same time. In novels, you don't have that advantage, of course. What you do have are metaphor and imagery. They are going to be your friends here. because we see the thing, the actual thing, and all that is associated with it. Metaphor imbues something with meaning via association. I think we're only just realising the power of it. I certainly am, and I've been working as a speechwriter for years and years, but it's only since I've started studying how metaphor and how rhetorical tricks work on the brain that I'm realising how important it is. According to Will Storr, we actually use one metaphor every 10 seconds of speech. I've not tested this out yet. But what I do know, it is the fundamental way the brain understands abstract concepts like love and joy, or society even. It evokes our motor system. That said, it cannot be cliché. Cliched metaphors and other language tricks like similes are cliched because they are worn out. They've effectively lost their power because we've used them so much, to the point where they just don't work anymore. It's an uphill battle is one. Down in the dumps is another. They just don't provoke emotion. They're flat and meaningless now. Or worse, they've become jokes. There's one on Twitter that's become a bit of a YA laughing stock. I let out a breath I didn't even know I was holding. If you're one of my students, I'm quite sure we've come across it in some of your work. Every year we come across this line. We've read it so often that it's almost second nature to put it into something, because it's easy. It sums a lot of things up. But I will warn you now that readers are wise to it and find it quite amusing. Another one is a smile that didn't reach his eyes, or her eyes. That's becoming quite worn now. And frankly, you can do better. You can think of other, more clever ones. Ones that are specific to your writer's voice and to your character's voice as well. These are a couple of my favourites. This is from an adult novel by Stuart Turtle, The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, I think it's called. It was an incredibly complicated plot, but full of beautiful, beautiful language tricks. He wore his fury like a suit. To me, that's a brilliant and bonkers simile. It made me really, it really evoked, I could immediately feel how massive that fury was. It was all encompassing for him. And this is another one of my favourites. My heart spasmed among the peonies like a trout. That's from We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. And I will be looking at that and the passage it's from when I talk about rhetoric in another video. For now, though, go away and think about feeling. Maybe take something you've already written and try to see if the emotion is actually there. Test it out. Will the reader care? Or will they say, so what? Good luck with your writing. Bye.